You found your way to Whispers of Crimes, a quiet corner where the shadows of the past are gently told. Here, we speak of real crimes and mysteries, not to shock or scare, but to wonder, to reflect, and maybe to help you fall asleep. So close your eyes, let your thoughts slow down, and come with me into tonight's case. He was soft-spoken, polite, almost invisible. But behind that calm smile was a monster. Hundreds of girls vanished across Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. Families searched. Authorities fumbled, and one man kept moving, town to town, grave to grave. Pedro Alonso López claimed to have killed over 300 children. He showed police where he buried them and then walked free. How does a man like this disappear? And more terrifying, is he still out there? Chapter 1. The boy from Colombia, Pedro Alonso López, was born on October 8, 1948, in San Isabel, Colombia. He was the seventh of 13 children, and his father, a local political activist, had been killed months before his birth during the violent civil conflict known as La Violencia. His mother, Benilda, was left to raise the family alone. López later said she was physically abusive and worked as a sex worker. Accounts vary, but by age 8, López had already been expelled or had run away from home. All of this turmoil played out on the unforgiving streets of Bogotá. A homo scamin, López joined gangs and endured further abuse. He later revealed that one night a stranger lured him with promises of a bed, but instead dragged him into an abandoned building and raped him. These experiences, parental violence, neglects, sexual abuse, left deep scars in the young boy. Criminologists note that many serial killers share similar traumatic childhoods, where suffering and abandonment breed anger and detachment. Chapter 2. The First Kill. As a young man, López drifted across Colombia until 1969, when he was arrested at age 21 for stealing a car. In prison, the brutal cycle continued. Within days, he was beaten and gang-raped by at least 2 other inmates. In desperation and fury, López fashioned a makeshift knife and killed his attackers. This act of vengeance reportedly added additional years to his sentence, though accounts differ on the exact extension. Behind bars, a dark resolve took root in López's mind. Prison did not rehabilitate him. Instead, it confirmed that violence was a means of survival and power. By the time he was finally released around 1978, López had grown hardened and vengeful. Now, in his early 30s, he walked away from prison with a grim determination to inflict on others the suffering he had endured. Chapter 3. The Road of Death. Between 1978 and 1980, López was on the run across the Andean region. It is believed that after his release, he systematically targeted young girls, often from indigenous communities, luring them to remote areas for rape and murder. Traveling on foot, he would approach vulnerable girls with the promise of a small gift or trinket. Once he had lured them to a secluded spot, López would rape and strangle them. In chilling detail, he later recalled, his method never changed. He got the girls alone, then strangled them with his bare hands. One notorious incident nearly cost him his life. In Peru, an Ayacucho indigenous community caught López in the act of kidnapping a 9-year-old girl. The villagers stripped López of his belongings and buried him alive in the sand as tribal justice. An American missionary convinced them to spare his life and hand him over to authorities. Shockingly, the Peruvian police promptly deported López back to Colombia without fully investigating the crimes against their children. Freed from Peru, but far from safe, López continued his bloody path. By the late 1970s, rural towns in Ecuador were also reporting missing girls. Often no clues were left behind, and families feared the worst. Police initially suspected kidnappers or traffickers, but many began to whisper of a single predator. In 1980, fate intervened in an unexpected way. Chapter 4, Ambota's Confrontation. The case broke wide open in April 1980, and not through the usual channels. Heavy rains caused flash flooding around the city of Ambato, Ecuador. The rushing waters swept away earth to reveal the skeletal remains of several missing young girls. Investigators rushed to those sites. The macabre discovery jolted the police into re-examining cold cases of missing children. Then, on a bustling market day in Ambato, the monster came face to face with one brave mother. Vendor Maria Carvina Poveda was walking with her 12-year-old daughter Marie when Lopez approached, holding the girl's hand and claiming he was taking her to buy candies. Carvina sensed danger. She and nearby merchants chased Lopez down, wrestling him into the dirt and holding him until police arrived. By the time police loaded Lopez into a paddy wagon, word of the capture had already spread through Ambato. The name Pedro Alonso López, until then unknown to most, was about to become synonymous with terror in the Andes. With Lopez in custody, the chilling scope of his crimes began to emerge. Chapter 5, Confession and Horror. Once in custody, Lopez's fate seemed sealed, but the truth he told would almost be beyond belief. Initially silent, he soon began to talk when one investigator used a cunning ruse. Police Captain Pastor Cordova pretended to be another prisoner and shared Lopez's cell. In that shadowy cell, Lopez finally opened up. He boasted of the countless victims he had left buried across the Andes. Calmly, he claimed he had murdered over 200 in Ecuador, some tons in Peru, and many more in Colombia. He described how he lured girls away with trinkets and then killed them. He even confessed to grisly tea parties, saying he sometimes exhumed his victims' corpses from their shallow graves to feast on their remains. When asked why he did it, Lopez gave the same chilling answer over and over. "I lost my innocence at age of 8, he said, so I decided to do the same to as many girls as I could." His words sent a shiver through the room, a man who blamed his crimes on the childhood he never had. Over the following days, Lopez cooperated enough to lead investigators to the burial sites. By digging in jungles and riverbeds, police exhumed the bodies of 53 girls in Ecuador alone. Officials officially linked Lopez to at least 110 murders in Ecuador, and his own claims suggested hundreds more across 3 countries. Each body uncovered added to the grim tally of the monster of the Andes. Chapter 6, Trial of the Monster. The trial of Pedro Alonso López became one of the most unbelievable in South American history. In July 1981, Lopez stood in an Ambato courtroom and pleaded guilty to 57 counts of murder. Ecuador's laws, however, imposed a strict limit on punishment. The harshest penalty was 16 years in prison. The judge therefore sentenced Lopez to exactly 16 years, the maximum available. The sentence sparked outrage. Many Ecuadorians could hardly believe that a confessed killer of so many children would walk free after so little time. While imprisoned, Lopez's infamy only grew. Journalists dubbed him the Monster of the Andes, a name he seemed to relish. Psychiatrists who examined him reported a man utterly devoid of empathy. He was officially diagnosed as a sociopath. In interviews from his cell, Lopez even spoke grandiosely of himself. Shortly before his release, he described himself as the man of the century. He was living legend in prison news. Yet for all the attention, the machinery of justice ticked on. No additional murders were proven after his 1980 arrest, so no extra years could be added. After serving roughly 14 years of his term, Lopez's sentence expired. On August 31st, 1994, he walked free from the Garcia Moreno prison in Quito. Chapter 7, Aftermath and Legacy. Immediately after his release, Ecuadorian authorities deported López to Colombia. Back home, prosecutors tried to charge him with an old unsolved murder, but mental health examiners had other ideas. In 1995, a Colombian court declared López legally insane, and he was committed to a psychiatric hospital in Bogotá instead of prison. The story took a final twist in 1998. After evaluation, authorities deemed López sane enough to live outside the hospital. Under guard, he was released on a small bail and ordered to report regularly. The once-feared killer quietly re-entered society. He even paid a visit to his elderly mother in her Bogotá home. In a strange and chilling encounter, López asked her for his inheritance. When the sick woman cheerfully replied she had nothing, López coldly sold even her sole bed and chair to street beggars. That meeting marked the last confirmed sighting of Pedro Alonso López. By September 1999, he had vanished. He failed to report back to police as ordered and simply disappeared. Colombian and Interpol authorities later issued warrants in 2002, fearing López might have returned to killing. Rumors swirled that he was hiding out as a vagrant in rural Colombia, but no one can say for sure. The last verifiable trace of his existence was a trip in 1999 to renew his citizenship papers. After that, the monster of the Andes slipped into legend, a fugitive who may still be alive, but whose whereabouts remain a mystery. Even in his absence, López's legacy remains chilling. He is officially tied to at least 110 confirmed victims in Ecuador, and he himself claimed the true toll was closer to 300 across South America. For years, Guinness World Records even listed him as the world's most prolific serial killer. Psychologists study López as a textbook example of how extreme trauma and cruelty can warp a human mind. His own words, especially the infamous line about losing innocence at 8, suggest he framed his killings as a twisted retribution for the childhood he never had. Experts point out that killers with similar backgrounds often rationalize their crimes as personal vengeance, illustrating how a victim can become a monster. López's diagnosis as a sociopath underscores how completely empathy had eroded from his personality. For investigators and the public, the monster of the Andes case remains a haunting enigma. It exposed how gaps in law enforcement across borders let a predator slip between countries. It also showed the limits of justice. Even confessed mass murderers can slip through the cracks if laws and circumstances fail them. And for the families of his victims, hundreds of mothers and fathers, López's story is a tragic, unfinished chapter. They have few answers besides his chilling confessions. Pedro Alonso López, once an abused street child, became a nightmare that crossed mountains and borders. Though he is now just a name whispered in fear, the memory of the monster of the Andes endures in the testimonies of survivors and the fragments of a long, dark timeline of horror. That's all for tonight's story. Another thread in the web of true crime, quietly unraveling as the night goes on. If you're still with me, thanks for listening. And if sleep has already taken you, may your dreams be peaceful and your mind at ease. I'll be here next time by the fire with another story waiting to be told. Good night, and don't forget to lock your doors.